Hey everyone, it's me, Dave, and I think we have all discovered the most mid movie in existence. Black Adam is, in my opinion, the most middle of the road thing to ever be created in human history. It wasn't bad, wasn't good, it was literally the conceptual form of meh. One thing that stood out to me is that critics were ripping this thing to shreds, like they were vicious. I don't really know why, because this is so mediocre that it's not really something you get angry about. And we get articles like Black Adam, the worst movie of the decade? Now, I get that that's probably clickbait and isn't really what they think, but how can you even ask that question with any sense of sincerity? You know Thor Love and Thunder came out this decade, right? Anyway, there is a reason why I'm talking about this movie in particular right now. I want to say immediately that this isn't a review. See, the way I normally do things is I go and say, hey, this is bad and this is the exact reason why and how you can change it, etc. But that's not going to work this time, for a very certain reason. You see, the entire time that I was watching Black Adam, I had this feeling like something was off. It's kind of like that feeling you get when you know you've forgotten something but you can't remember what. I was sitting through this movie expecting a generic superhero film, and it was, but while I was watching it, I just had this feeling like something was wrong. It wasn't quite right. The normal stuff was happening on screen, you know, the big bad guys fighting the superheroes, big CGI fight, whatever, but it didn't feel normal. I have never felt the same way about any other movie before. Like, when I watch other superhero movies, I never get the same feeling as when I was watching this one. So this isn't a review, it's more like a cry for help to my audience so I can figure out what the fuck is wrong with this movie. Also, spoilers for Black Adam, obviously. Well, why don't we start with the usual suspects to see if we can figure this out. Why don't we start with the writing? So how's the writing for this movie? It's written, I think. They did write things, and things did happen. I can't say that there were any points in the film where I was just staring at the screen going, this is so fucking stupid, how did they not think of this, you writers are idiots. For a modern day superhero movie, that's kind of impressive. The reason being is, in a lot of modern superhero movies, the main characters are super overpowered. They have insane abilities that make them way stronger and way faster than everyone else around them. So when Dr. Fate shows up with magic and has a ton of different spells, I was just waiting for them to fuck it up somewhere. I'm sure we all know modern superhero movies don't have any issues with people with overpowered magical abilities and a ton of insane spells. Just fucking throw in portals, mirror dimensions, whatever the fuck you want. I'm sure it won't have any negative impact on the plot. So in my brain, when I see wizards, superhero movie, and teleportation all in the same spot, I sort of get nervous. The alarm bells start ringing and I'm thinking they're gonna fuck this up, but to my shock, they kinda didn't. Dr. Fate is one of the best things in this movie, if not the best thing in this movie. And to top it all off, when he fights, he uses his fucking brain! Oh my god, I was blown away! He uses basically everything he has in his arsenal to his advantage, and when they give him a power, they don't just forget about it. This guy has the ability to duplicate himself, see the future, trap people in weird onk thingies. Like, he has so many OP abilities, and he uses all of them. They don't skimp on anything. And if you think about it for more than 3 seconds, it still holds up. Like, it's incredible. The only time I can think of a plot-induced stupidity moment with Dr. Fate is when one of the main bad guys was in a force field and he didn't just teleport right in. Although we do see the force field reject his magic, so maybe he can't teleport in for that reason, so even then it's debatable whether or not he was being stupid there. But even if you do think that was a plot hole, it's only one plot hole in a modern-day superhero movie with wizards. Usually in those kind of movies, there's like 57 plot holes in a single scene. So we're doing good so far, what about all the other characters' abilities? Well, outside of Dr. Fate, most of their abilities aren't that overcomplicated. We know what they can do and we understand it well enough. And when they set up that a character has a power, they don't just forget about it, they actually keep consistent with what they can do. The only one that was kind of weird to me was probably Cyclone, because her ability is that she can make wind move around. Now that's a cool power, don't get me wrong, but it would be more cooler if it was actually useful in this context. Because early on, they were sent out to fight Black Adam, you know, that dude who's empowered by the gods, can control electricity, and is nigh indestructible? And she thinks she's gonna fight him by chucking some pipes near where he's standing. Yeah, maybe not the best person for this mission in particular. Characterization-wise, both Atom Smasher and Cyclone are fine, it's just they don't have much to do throughout the movie because, again, they're literally fighting gods and devils. And Hawkman, too, is usually just around to get his ass beat. Dr. Fate is the only person here who I think has the power level to actually be useful on this kind of mission. At least in the terms of this movie's logic. I know things might be different in the comics, but we're not talking about those. But outside of a few minor hiccups, there were never points in the film where I was mad at them for being so stupid. So far, so good, I guess. There were little to no points in this film where I thought the plot was only moving along because of plot-induced stupidity or the characters not using their powers properly. If that's not the issue, then what is? Why don't we talk about the main plot and see if that has any issues? So this movie takes place in Kahndaq and is based around none other than Black Adam, hence the name. A long time ago, a bunch of wizards saw his son and were like, hey, let's give him superpowers because that would be super cool. But his son gave his powers to his father in order to save him after he nearly died. And in a fit of rage, his father went out, murdered the king, and used his powers poorly, so the wizards tried to take it away from him. And when that didn't work, they sealed him away for a long time. That is until an archaeologist just happened to stumble into his tomb and wake him up from the grave. He wakes up to find that this evil group known as Intergang has taken control of Kahndaq, and now he has to fight them off. But before he can do that, Amanda Waller finds out that he woke up. So Amanda Waller does what Amanda Waller does best, throw crazy superpowered people at the problem until the movie decides it's over. One of the most important aspects of this story is Plutonium, I mean Eternium. It's this super metal that can only be found in Wakanda, I mean Kahndaq. And it does basically whatever the plot needs it to in whatever scene it's in. It can be nearly indestructible, be used to infuse crowns with demons' powers, create force fields, create missiles that can harm Black Adam, and also it allows you to make super hover bikes that can fly around the world in like seconds. Now this is something that like a ton of superhero movies do, and a lot of other movies in general. They have these super metals that basically function on plot powers. The dream metal that can do anything so long as it isn't inconvenient for the story. I'm kinda sick of this trope, to be completely honest. Like, not every story needs vibranium thrown into it for no reason. But here it's pretty inoffensive, so I guess I can't be too angry about it. Something that other reviewers of this movie have pointed out is that they decide to make a big deal of Eternium missiles because they're able to hurt Black Adam. But he only gets hurt by one a single time, and it never comes up again for the rest of the movie. A great example of throwing a setup into the story only to never pay it off. It's always unsatisfying when that happens, but again, that happens in a lot of movies these days. The plot progression in this movie is standard for the most part. It's your typical superhero affair. The superhero team is at odds with itself for a little bit, but eventually a big bad shows up and they all team up at the end. And there's also a bunch of disposable grunts for the weak human characters to fight so we can pretend that they're actually useful. I want to pause for a second to talk about the main villain. So the main villain is Sabak, a demon, and he summons the legions of hell into Kahndaq. Now, when I was watching this movie with my friends, we joked about this constantly because the legions of hell are weak as shit. Random fodder citizens with no superpowers at all and extremely weak weaponry are just tearing through this legion. Is this the Legion of Hell or the Legion of Care Bears? How am I supposed to take this threat seriously if all of them are getting fodderized by normal people with no superpowers? Although, to be honest, Care Bears are probably more threatening. They spent this whole movie hyping up the demon and hyping up these demonic powers, and oh no, the world's gonna burn to the ground, but honestly, if this is the Legion they're trying to take over planet Earth with, they're gonna fail hard. Superman just has to sneeze in their general direction and that army is gone. But moving on from that tangent, the plot is just mid, it's mediocre. It's not the worst thing ever, but it's not great, it's just meh. So if the plot and the characters are just standard and not that bad, why do I feel so weird while watching this movie? Well, I think I'm close to figuring this out. I'll let you guys be the judge, but I think it all comes down to the pacing. This movie is over 2 hours long, yet they're rushing through it like they only have 30 minutes to spare. It felt like they were going for a mid-superhero movie speed run. Have you ever heard the term non-stop action in an advertisement before? Well, I think this is a good example of actually non-stop action, because it doesn't stop. Now, normally I think having a bunch of action in an action movie isn't really a problem because it can keep it interesting, but eventually you're gonna need to have some downtime. If everything is just constant action and superpowered shit happening all around you, you start to lose focus on the movie. You need to find a good balance between stuff happening and downtime so the movie isn't overly boring or overly crazy. There are downtime moments in this movie, but they don't really work as intended. And I think the reason why is because of the dialogue. You see, in this movie, when people talk, they do not shut the fuck up. Like, oh my god, they are speaking 1,000,000 words per minute. And every scene where they aren't fighting, they're talking, and they're talking a lot. They're saying 1,000,000 things. They're saying, oh, we gotta worry about the Eternium, and oh, we gotta worry about Sabak and the crown, and blah, 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 blah. All of the dialogue was happening so fast, and it felt unfocused. We were just bouncing all over the place, the characters constantly talking, and I just sort of lost interest in what they were saying. Because all of the downtime scenes are speckled with this dialogue that's going so fast you can barely focus, it doesn't let you catch your breath. Now this is usually the part where I would show examples from the movie, but I'm worried about getting copyright claimed, so I guess I can't do that. The best I can do is give you a representation of what the dialogue is like in this movie. I hope you understood everything he said, because that's going to be plot relevant later. When you have a film like this where everything is just constantly happening and like there's a billion new pieces of information getting chucked at your face, it can be hard to focus. They crammed so much stuff in this movie that it's hard to pick something out in particular that you can really focus on and enjoy. For me, that thing was Dr. Fate, because of course Dr. Fate was incredible in this, but also he died at the end. The Rock giveth, and the Rock taketh away. As sad as I am that Dr. Fate passed away, this might be better for the DCEU going forward since, you know, having an overpowered wizard might cause issues. We already know in these superhero franchises that the good characters get fucked over in later movies, so maybe we should kill them off while they're good so the directors can't touch them again. So to summarize, the reason I think this movie felt so weird was because of the pacing. It was just way too fast with very little downtime, and the downtime they did have was ruined by quick-paced dialogue. There are certain times where having extremely fast-paced dialogue can help out, but when you're doing it all the time, it becomes an issue. You need to know when to slow things down and when to speed things up. You can't just go 1,000,000 miles per hour all the time. But maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe there's some huge flaw in this movie I just missed because I'm stupid, so let me know in the comments down below. As for now, this is Dave, and I am leaving.
The full might of Kamertage stands against you.
Defensive positions! Now!